This week on the Deep Leadership Podcast.
I don't know that I have all the right stuff to take this business to the next level. So I need to make sure that I've got the right people who can do that, and that I'm focusing on where I can bring value and what I'm good at. And if I'm not good at it, let's find somebody else who's
I love it.
way better at it.
This episode is brought to you by the Salty Sailor Coffee Company, the official coffee of the Deep Leadership Podcast. Salty Sailor is a veteran-owned coffee brand on a mission to deliver premium, fresh roasted coffee while making a positive impact in the world. Their motto is drink coffee and do good, which reflects their commitment to making amazing coffee and actively supporting the military community. 10% of every order goes to the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, an organization dedicated to helping sailors, Marines, and their families in times of need. All our listeners get 10% off every order of their amazing coffee by using the discount code DEEP at checkout. So check them out at saltysailorcoffee.com. Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Lucie Voves. Lucie is the CEO and founder of Churchill Classics, a certified woman-owned business known online as diplomaframe.com. For more than 30 years, Churchill Classics has handcrafted officially licensed diploma frames, certificate frames, photo frames, and awards for thousands of colleges and universities, honor societies, professional associations, corporate clients, and the U.S. military. Lucie is a 12-time recipient of the Inc. 5000 Award and is also the exclusive award provider for the Inc. 5000 Female Founders Fast Company and the Enterprising Woman of the Year. I'm excited to have her on the show to talk about leading a successful manufacturing business in the U.S. So, Lucie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, John. I'm excited to be here.
I'm an honor. It's an honor to meet you, and it's an honor to meet someone with so much success, especially in manufacturing, which is near and dear to my heart. So I've been doing it for nearly 30 years. So I'm really excited to talk to you. But get us started. Tell us about Churchill Classics and how you started as a side hustle in your home, and then you built this company. So tell us your origin story, because I think it's really interesting.
I have a little bit of a history as an entrepreneur. I started a couple of businesses in college and actually sold one when I graduated. So it's kind of been in my blood. I took a corporate job coming out of college, working for Procter & Gamble in brand management, and I loved it, but I always kind of had the itch to do something. And when I finally got an office, I wanted a picture of the main building at Dartmouth College, which is where I went to school. And I couldn't find one. And I thought, well, there have to be a lot of people who would be interested in this. So I found an artist and we commissioned a painting and created a series of signed and numbered prints. And his wife taught me how to frame. And I framed some up, and I went to campus at Dartmouth at graduation and set up an easel and pedaled on the street corner. And it was true moonlighting, totally bootstrapped. So that's how it got started. I got into a small store in town, and actually they went bankrupt. So I got that lesson early on. And then I got into the main Dartmouth co-op and really did great with my artwork, and it gave me the opportunity to engage with more customers and graduates. And I actually got into framing diplomas with school name and school seal after talking to customers. And I had people who said, I love your frame, but can you make one for my diploma to match? And oh, by the way, the Dartmouth diploma is completely in Latin. So can you put something on there so people can read where we went to school? So that's how I got into gold foil embossing, school name, school seal. And that was really when the business took off, and I knew that I had a great opportunity.
So how far, how far back is this? Because I think, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur nowadays, but tell us, like, when you were looking at doing this, when you're selling, art at Dartmouth.
So that was 1991 when I started
Wow.
the business, and it was about 2.5 years in when I started figuring out how to make diploma frames and rolling that out.
And,
So
and,
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and as a reminder, listeners, there's no internet. there's no there's
No,
nobody's an entrepreneur back then. I mean, it's crazy that so I mean, it's common now to hear about college students starting companies and selling companies from their dorm rooms, right? But not in 1991. That was not happening at all.
I had an
So
answering machine by my bed, and phone calls would come in the middle of the night from Hawaii or whatever it was, and I did it all. And when I was at work, I had an answering service, but it was very different.
so how long did you operate as a side hustle before you decided to quit your day job?
About 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a combination of things. I was actually working at that point for a subsidiary of Procter and Gamble in Connecticut, and I was going to have to move back and to the mothership. And I just couldn't do that because of my family situation. So I had reached a point where I needed to make a change. I took another job, and it just was not the right fit for me. And I think that was really what gave me the bug to say, you know what, I'm young. This is the time. If I'm going to stick my neck out, I think I have a really good idea here, and I'm just going to dive into it. And that's how I got
Oh,
started. It's hard to do that. It's hard to give up the steady salary and say, okay, I'm ready to take that leap. And I think I needed that kick in the pants of almost a forced change to get me to take that big jump.
yeah, that's amazing. We talked. I was on a podcast recently talking about risk in your career, and I think early in your career, before you have a lot of, before you have children and you have a house, and it's a great time for entrepreneur, to become an entrepreneur because your risks are lower. And then for me, I started my company 8 years ago. My kids had left the house, so it was like, okay, now, and I have a nest egg, so it's a perfect time too. But when you're raising kids, or you're in the middle of, you got a mortgage and all that, it's the idea of leaving corporate or leaving a great job to go start something is always it's a risky proposition. So
It
you
is.
did it early on, and have stayed with it for all this time. So you mentioned the gold foil, the embossing. Your products are beautiful. I was on your website, just absolutely beautiful what you produce. How do you differentiate yourself from the competitors? Because I imagine there's a lot of people that frame, and there's a lot of people that do this type of work. How do you separate yourself from the pack, and how have you done it so successfully for so long?
Well, I was in the industry early, and at the time that I got started, licensing programs, colleges, and universities were eager for anybody that would make any product that had their name on it. So I was really able to get in the door early, and that made a big difference. What I learned was that to sell a product that was much more expensive than, sorry, sorry about that. To sell a product that was much more expensive than what's normally sold in a college bookstore, I needed to do more than just deliver a product to the store. So what I learned was that I needed to create marketing materials, and that was my background, and help these bookstores be successful selling the frames that we were making for them. So the marketing element and making it turnkey and easy for those stores, helping them and directly reaching out to parents and driving them back into the bookstore at graduation and helping them build that traffic was really, really important. And how we do that's changed over all of these years. Today, it has a lot more to do with, we have social media roadmaps, specific posts and content that we share with them to help make it easy. So it's evolved a lot over time. But to be successful in this market, you have to do a lot more than just make a great quality product. We need to help them be successful selling it. And we've also really learned, and we have a major focus on creating wow moments for our customers. It's really our goal. You open that box and you're like, wow, that was like, this is even nicer than I ever expected. I'm so proud to give this. I'm so proud to get this. And those wow moments, real people answering the phone, personal touches, all of that's a big part of the experience. And I think word of mouth and reputation has been really important for our business over the years, and a huge source of growth. So I think that focus has been very valuable.
Yeah, I can tell. Like I said, the product is beautiful, and like I'm working on my PhD right now, and I actually looked to see what you got for frames for my school, and I'm like, all right, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna treat myself after going through this as a 56-year-old going back to school. I'm gonna treat myself to a nice frame when I finish. So
That's great.
so that's fantastic. So, your frames are built in Connecticut. They're hand built. You've got manufacturing here stateside. What are been some of the challenges with keeping a manufacturing business running for so long and being so successful? What are some of the challenges you've faced, and why have you committed to that?
A huge part of the diploma frame business for us is being able to do things custom,
Hmm.
the way people want them, matching school colors, what will look best in your office. And we actually produce frames for most of the major graduate schools for all of the specific schools that we work with. So there's so many variations that it would be very difficult, quite frankly, to try to import it. I did early on start out buying some of my frames pre-made, and I struggled with the quality. I just found that, like, I want to be in control. I want it made the right way so we can maintain that great wow experience. So that's been an important driver for me. It has been a challenge. Labor's a challenge, and labor cost controls, and just managing operating expenses. I think you have to be successful, you almost have to view yourself as a technology company, because the systems and the efficiency of the workflow and the way you operate is a huge cost component. And we can be more competitive from a workflow perspective by leveraging technology. And we can also cut out a lot of the freight and the costs and the delays. So it was really an advantage for us when COVID came along to be in the US, to be able to produce product. And we were extremely proactive about supply chain and to manage through all of that. But I've found generally that it is an advantage. People want products quickly, and that's been a huge focus for us. How can we custom make a frame for you and get it in and out of here in 2 to 5 days, done right? And that's kind of part of our secret sauce. And we're focused on how do we get it faster and faster, because that's what people expect. Deliver the great quality and get it to them as fast as we reasonably can.
That's fantastic. And again, my hat's off to you for continuing to work at it, because I know the complications of trying to run a manufacturing business in the U.S. It's challenge. I mean, and like you said, labor costs, tax laws, rules. I've been leading manufacturing businesses for 30 years, and the OSHA regulations keep changing, and the HIPAA laws, and the regulations keep changing and shifting, and you got to stay on top of it, because these are all real challenges. And so for those that stick with it and stay with it, my hat's off, because I know the challenges of what it takes. What would you say? I mean, you went from being sort of a solo entrepreneur to now having, this, workforce. You have teams of people working for you. I would imagine you had to learn leadership on the fly. So what did you learn about yourself as you started leading people? And how would you describe maybe your leadership style and your leadership approach?
I think truthfully, my leadership style has evolved a lot over
Mm.
time. What it took to be successful when I was an entrepreneur and I had my hands on everything, and maybe I couldn't afford to hire people who were as experienced as might have been ideal. I mean, you just have to scrape together what you can scrape together. And I was self-funded for the first 7 years. So that was a constraint for my business, partially because I really didn't know where to go to get the funding. And it was hard to get my hands on as a female at that point in time. So I just figured out the model that helps our business grow and replicated it. If it works at these schools, I can take on 6 more over the next 18 months. And that was kind of how it grew. So early on, and back when I worked at P&G, one of my managers said to me that I was like a bull in a china shop, and I think I probably was. And that doesn't work very well in entrepreneurship. And as a company grows, it doesn't work well at all. So I'd probably describe my leadership style as being adaptive, because I think it really has changed as the demands of the business have changed. And when you cross over, for me, probably around 10 million in revenue, things change. You have teams of people. What's required of me as a CEO is so different from what it was when it was smaller. And it's really, I think, changed again as the business has continued to grow. For me, I try to be a really good listener and to understand what makes people tick and how I can do a good job of motivating them and coaching them and helping them step up to the next level and take on more. And I think also a big piece of it is being motivating. I mean, I'm the visionary. I have to be the one who's the most passionate and hopefully get everybody to buy into what we do. Yes, we make diploma frames or we make awards for big events, but the reality of the core of what we do is that we create frames to showcase milestone moments in people's lives. These are big, important achievements, big family moments. There's a lot of pride. So in a way, the story's kind of built in, and it's cool and it's easy to be passionate about it. But as a leader, you've got to be the one who's helping to build that, because that engagement and that excitement is so important to success.
I love how you say you connect it to, again, you're celebrating big events in people's lives through these frames. And so you're connecting your workers, your employees with a worthwhile mission, and I think that sometimes, I took over my first manufacturing plant. I was 32 years old. And I would walk around the shop floor and I said, "What do you do here?" And he said, "Well, I paint this part." And I said, "What do you do?" "I plate this part." "Oh, I grind this part." I'm like, "Well,
Right.
what does the part go?" And they said, "I don't really know." And I said, "Well, we make circuit breakers. You know what they do?" And they're like, I have no idea what a circuit breaker is. I don't know what it does. So one of the things I found is that the employees weren't connected to the mission. They didn't really understand. And so I started a process of, all employee meetings. I would talk about like what we did and where the breakers went and how. And so I started this talking about we keep the lights on. Our job is to keep the lights on. So hospitals,
Right.
schools, grocery stores, they would need us to keep the lights on. And it was like just connecting them to that bigger picture and the impact we were making in the world, instead of just I cut frames, right?
Right.
No, you're helping celebrate these big moments in people's lives. And I think people want to be part of a bigger mission and not just
Absolutely.
yeah, just like I cut frames, right? They want to know that I'm helping people celebrate these milestones in their lives. I love that.
And what they contribute is so much greater when they have that feeling, and it gives them a sense of ownership. And I really think it's contributed to our ability to retain a lot of people over time. And I think we've done a good job of building internal talent. And since COVID, it's been harder to hire, and it's been more important to figure out, okay, like, what is this person's unique strength? What do they want to accomplish? How can we help them grow? What needs do we have in the future? So that's a big part of leadership.
Hmm. It's really critical, and so I'm just my hats off again that you're doing it, you're sustaining it, you're growing, and that's exciting to hear for
Thank
sure.
you. Yeah, me too.
So I mentioned in the intro, 12-time recipient of the Inc. 5000 Award for fastest growing private companies. Come on now, come on, it's not even fair for those of us who are also running businesses. So what I mean, uh, is that a surprise to you when you hear 12 times you've received that award? Obviously, it's old news, right? But did you imagine in your early days that you'd find yourself in a position like this?
No, definitely not. And it gets more difficult every time because it's always based on a multiple of your growth. So as you get bigger, you have to grow more and more and more. You know, um, I think we have a great core business idea, but the most critical thing over all these years that I've been doing this business is nothing is static. The environment is changing, technology is changing, and I've had like multiple incidents over time where the business has had to significantly pivot and or gone through very difficult times. I think the greatest opportunities exist when you have challenges. COVID was one of those, the Great Recession, 08, 09. That's when new opportunities come up, when you need to be able to look at things in different ways or change the way that you do business. And I think that's probably the most important thing that's allowed us to have sustained significant growth over so many years.
And I think you mentioned adaptive leadership. I would say probably that's a good description because you've had to make all these shifts and changes over the years to maintain your growth, maintain your success. That's for sure. One of the things I'm in part of my doctorate program, I'm doing a lot of work on resilience right now and how to develop resilience in a startup business. And so it's kind of it's very much a subject near and dear to my heart because I've had to have a lot of resilience the past 8 years to start my thing from scratch. But do you sense that you have resilience? Your early team had resilience. Would you attribute that to some of your success?
100%, absolutely. Because there are days when I go home and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, why do I do this? I'm worn down. But somehow, like, I can wake up in the morning and I'm like, all right, it's a new day. Here we go. My head's clearer. I can figure out how to navigate better. And I think passion and resilience are critical to being successful as an entrepreneur. And it's made a difference for me that I really believe in what we're doing. I want to provide great quality jobs to the people who work here at home, help my community. And that's what gives me a lot of satisfaction.
And so it's interesting because as the founder of the business, you know the truth, right? So you know exactly what the problems are, but yet you're around the people that you have to be upbeat and positive about. So did you find yourself in positions sometimes where like you're saying, let's go, we're excited about this or whatever, but in the back of your mind thinking, oh, this better happen or I'm going to fail. I mean, how did you balance the reality of what your current situation is and then your hope for the future or your desire, to achieve all your goals? Do you have to just sort of put that in the back of your mind, say, you know what, I'm going to ignore my feelings about what's happening right
Right.
now so I can have a positive face for your employees? How did you deal with some of those challenges?
Well, I think you have to be intentional about planning and about strategically where do you want to go. We actually do quarterly planning. I have a leadership team now, which has been a really important part of supporting a bigger business and helping to build the talent pool that we need. And, I don't know that I have all the right stuff to take this business to the next level. So I need to make sure that I've got the right people who can do that and that I'm focusing on where I can bring value and what I'm good at. And if I'm not good at it, let's find somebody else who's
I love it.
way better at it. But we meet weekly to review progress against significant priorities, and the priorities are for the quarter and measured weekly. And then there's an annual plan. And so the quarterly priorities roll up into that. I found if you're not intentional about those critical things you need to do to get to where you want to be in 25 and 26 and future years, that they get lost because you can get tied up in the details every single day. So we try to carve out time to agree on these are the important things we will do. These are the things we will not do. Like we might want to, but right now we can't do those things because we need to do these things. And having that alignment is important. And I found we probably make the fastest progress and the most success when we're extremely focused.
Mm.
when it's very clear across the whole company that this is what has to be accomplished. So the better we can do at that and communicating with people, so everybody in the organization understands what we need to do and why we need to do it to get the business to the next stage. I think that's a big key. Sometimes you get tied up in things from day to day, and you've got to put out fires and things come up, but you've got to make time for the critical things that have to get done, and you've got to have cutoff dates and hold each other accountable.
It's interesting because you're doing the things that only the leader can do, right? Which is set the goals. Obviously you listen to input from everybody, but at the end of the day, you're the one who has to put the rudder in the water and steer the ship, right? To like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're not going to do. But what's interesting is I talk to a lot of leaders, and I remind them that leadership is about motivating people to achieve a goal, and we sometimes get lost in leadership with all the other things we have to do, but we have to get back to motivating people towards an objective, and that means having an objective, communicating the objective, having the right people on your team. It's the basic of leadership, and what you're saying is that's what's been your secret to success is motivating people towards achieving objectives that you do on. And it's not just 1 year, and it's not just 1 quarter, it's every quarter, every year, and it's a constant work and a constant iterative process to be able to do this.
I absolutely agree. And another important learning, especially as the company's grown, is you have to communicate what feels like ridiculously too much.
Yes, thank you for saying
Repeat
that.
and repeat. And I still think most people would like more communication.
Yeah.
And I have to be deliberate about that. We have to make sure the whole leadership team is being deliberate and that people understand where we're headed. I think huddles and regular cadence of communication and accountability about expectations and performance indicators, the production people knowing this is how many frames we need to be producing every day, and here's how we're doing, and here's what the future looks like, and rewarding and making sure everybody knows when we're on track. We have visual dashboards that are in the building that show critical measures and that are easy to read and understand. And we have an annual incentive program that's based on the success of the company in achieving profit targets, and everybody benefits from that, so they understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think that's another important thing about owning a business is the employees. You have to teach some things about business, like why is it important for the business to make money? Well, if we don't make money, we can't make investments. We can't ensure that we're stable if there's an economic setback, and to help them understand that even just that their time is an asset, how they spend it, what we buy, all those things come together and contribute. And I've had the great fortune of being able to have a company that today I own 100%. We're debt free. We're a profitable operation. And I think a lot of the people who work for the company have a better understanding of business because we try to be a little more transparent and to help them understand some of the mechanics of why operating efficiently is so important.
That's fantastic. And again, it's a big, and that's leadership too, is just, teaching, informing, training, because I think you're right. Sometimes, employees will say, oh, you're making so much profit this month, oh, I can afford to steal a few pens or whatever they might think, or why am I not getting a pay raise if we're making this much profit? And it's important to sort of, like you say, teach lessons of the importance of how success makes us more resilient for the future, and we can handle the downturns, we can handle the things that come up like COVID because we've been smart with our investments, we've been smart with our how we run the company. So yeah, I think that's really important. I know I did a lot of I did all employee meetings every month for the past 30 years. So yeah, I'm teaching many of these lessons myself. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's
And
great.
I think it's really important that we share that so we can learn and we can so they can understand what success looks like and feels like
Right.
and why we do what we do. So yeah, that's fantastic. Well, this has been fantastic, Lucie. What final message would you like to leave with our listeners?
Wow, a lot of them. I think one of the things is I always try to remind myself that when you have lemons, figure out how you can make lemonade. We actually had some of the greatest growth that our company's ever had during COVID. And you may recall, I mean, that started in like March, and college campuses started closing down, graduations were canceled, bookstores were closed. And our initial reaction was like, oh my God, like we are in huge trouble. Like, what are we going to? This is our whole business. So, one, that's a good example of having resilience and some extra ammunition available to weather a difficult storm. So we had the confidence of knowing that. But we quickly just connected to the whole emotional experience of graduation. These kids were gypped out of their senior spring. They didn't get to have graduation. Parents didn't get to go to graduation. And in a lot of cases, there wasn't even a lot of talk about like what to do about it. So we paired with a company that does caps and gowns, and we just put together a presentation about the importance and how colleges and universities could bring graduation to life virtually for graduates. And that was very important. Sorry, my lights are on. So that was a big piece of our success in COVID, at making that emotional connection, changing the imagery that we used for graduation away from, this traditional podium. It was people in the backyard. We actually had colleges and universities reaching out and saying, well, we can't do graduation, but can you help us make frames? And we want to send them out to everybody.
Mm.
I think parents wanted to do something special. So diploma frame was really of interest. And the other thing that was important was we quickly realized that for many of our raw materials, we needed to make sure that we had supply coming into us. And we were very proactive. In a time when a lot of companies were trying to cut costs, we rented the building next door so that we could fill it with materials and make sure we knew we had on hand what we needed. And so I think the combination of all of those things and just being able to seize opportunity when things change. In the Great Recession in 2008, prior to that, my business was entirely wholesale. And we started having bookstores that didn't have enough open to buy our products. So if they didn't have it and we didn't sell it, nobody could buy it. So we reinvented our product packaging to make it more friendly for bookstores so they could ship their inventory out, or they could have it walk out the door, and then they weren't as scared of the value of the inventory. And we had built a website and put together a program that allowed bookstores to link out to us. They could carry a few core styles they wanted, but if somebody wanted to customize or have a grad school, they could link out to us. We would make that and sell it, and then they would earn a commission. So that actually allowed me to create an e-commerce presence that has been really important to us going forward. And today it's interesting, our business is actually very close to 50% wholesale and 50% direct to consumer. And even in COVID, at times, the retail business, initially the wholesale business died. The retail business took off. And then we were able to go back to bookstores and say, look, people want these products, they're selling. And even if they weren't open, we could ship them out for them if they could get them back up on their website. So then our wholesale business started taking off. So it was very interesting, and that flexibility has been a real asset.
I think the main thing I hope, listener, you're taking away from this is that every crisis can be an opportunity, and it
Absolutely.
really can. And I know my small business, they ended all our trade shows, and the trade shows is where electricians go to get educated. So we started doing virtual training, and we were one of the few companies doing it. And so suddenly our name got out there because we were the company doing all this virtual training for all electricians around the country. So in other words, you take these opportunities, these moments, right, where you can shift your business model, maybe do something different. You find a way to grow. And I love the idea of you adapt to the winds are shifting. Okay, we got to move our sails, but we're going to still be moving forward, but maybe it's slightly different. Now we're a retail business. We never were before, but we have to. And now, what does it mean to be a retail business? Well, it's a whole nother way of operating, right?
Right.
But you do it, and again, it's been a big part of how you survived COVID, which is if you didn't have that retail presence, right, you wouldn't have had that opportunity. So again, using every challenge, every crisis to make your business better. It's a great story, and I absolutely love hearing that. And I'm really excited to hear about all your success, because clearly you are providing the right leadership for this business for sure. So that's fantastic to hear about it. So how can our listeners find out more about you and your company?
Absolutely. Well, I can be found on LinkedIn at Lucie, Lucie, Voves, Voves. Our company is online at diplomaframe.com, and we make diploma frames for colleges and universities all around the country. We also make frames for the United States military. And we have a year-round 15% off discount for military veterans, and that's military 2024. That's the code that I'd like to share. And just, one other thing I'll mention, which is an interesting adaptive idea. We make frames for a lot of different organizations, professional, legal, medical. We actually make frames for the American Kennel Club. We had somebody who bought
Oh,
a
wow.
frame, a diploma frame, and said, well, can you do this for like my doggy pedigree and portrait and all of that? So we're really good at making these frames with names, seals, logos, athletic marks, medallions. And we've been able to take that core idea and broaden it to associations and dogs and all kinds of things. So it's an interesting way that a business can grow, focusing on without having to have a lot of different products. We're just leveraging what we're already really good at.
Such a great message. Listeners, I hope you took away a lot of lessons, because I have, in terms of being able to adapt, to being able to just continue to grow, find ways to grow, find ways to find, you've got skills, right? You have abilities. How can you apply it to different markets? Like dogs, like who would have thought, right? When you
Right.
started this company years ago, you want to put a picture of Dartmouth on your wall, and you end up doing dog pedigree frames, right? It's phenomenal. But again, that's what I remember telling some of my early employees. I said, we will not know we will not recognize this company 20 years from now. It'll be different from what we started. And
Absolutely.
that's what being adaptive is all about. So Lucie, this has been fantastic. And again, I'm going to put links in the show notes for all of Lucie's resources, including her company. And again, go to that website. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The products are beautiful. I will be buying a frame for my doctorate degree when I get it, if I ever get it. And because I want to be celebrating that moment in my life, because it's been a lot of hard work for this old guy going back to school.
Absolutely.
So,
That's
but
great. Thank you.
but fantastic. So we'll put links in the show notes. And again, I highly encourage, if something in here that you listened to, that you heard, you're excited about, we got Lucie's LinkedIn connection there. So reach out to her, say hi, say you heard about her on the show, and I'm sure she'll be able to answer some questions you might have. So Lucie, thanks for coming on the show, and thank you for sharing your amazing story.
Very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity, John.
Thank you. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.